Good evening, everyone. As we begin this meeting, I'll ask everyone to please silence their cell phones and other electronic devices and remind council that our procedural bylaw forbids the use of mobile devices during council meetings. It's 6:30 p.m. I'll call this council planning meeting to order. The Municipality of Brighton Council recognizes and acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe, now of Alderville. These peoples agreed through treaty with the Crown to mutual sharing obligations and responsibilities as stewards of the lands and waters. We recognize that these are now our shared responsibilities in partnership to continue to protect the land and the water that we now know as Brighton. In doing our work, we honor the Indigenous ancestors who came before us and who continue to be present in lands which we occupy. We acknowledge and honor the First Nations who continue to hold and share their rich history, traditions, and cultures that are proud, modern, and vibrant. As we move forward, we hope that every time we gather, we acknowledge all those who have come before us. We don't traditionally do announcements at council planning meetings, but it would be inappropriate if I didn't provide an announcement and welcome CAO Alana Arthurs to her first meeting here in Brighton. We wish her a long and storied career here in the municipality, and thank you for joining us, Alana. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council approve the April 8th, 2024 planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of Council, do you have any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. And there are none noted. We have no delegations this evening, which brings us to our statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Councillor Fredis, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council move into the statutory public meeting April 8th, 2024 at 6:32 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The municipality takes steps beyond the requirements of the Planning Act to engage the community in land use planning initiatives, including requiring developers to host information sessions in advance of providing the municipality a completed application. The municipality also holds a statutory public meeting on the planning application in order to capture comments and concerns from the public. Council will then receive a staff report with a recommendation on which Council will make a decision. After Council has made our decision, any person or public body may appeal Council's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as long as they have made an oral submission at the statutory public meeting, where the planning matter was heard, or provided comments in writing to the clerk's office before or during the statutory public meeting, where the planning matter was heard, and requested notice of the decision from the clerk's office. This is also true of any person or public body that wishes to participate in the appeal. For details or information on appealing decisions of Council, please visit the municipal website or contact the clerk's office. The first item in our statutory public meeting is Consent and Zoning Bylaw Amendment B18 2023, B05 2024, and Z09 2023. The applicant is Elizabeth Clark. The location is Percy Boom Road. Mr. Walsh, by what method and on what date was notice of the application given?
Mayor, Council, a notice of the subject applications were given on March 18th, 2024, through a posting of a sign on the subject lands, a display on the municipal webpage for Planning Act applications, and lastly, through regular mail to all such property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands, all within keeping of the regulations of the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject bylaws before Council this evening?
The purpose of consent applications B18 2023 and B05 2024 are to sell the property located at the subject lands to create 2 new rural residential lots. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment Z09 2023 is to establish appropriate zones resulting from the lot reconfiguration. and the severed lots. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the severed lots from the agricultural exception 1 zone to the rural residential zone in order to address the reduced lot sizes and associated permitted uses. The zoning bylaw amendment will also rezone the identified natural features on the property from the agriculture exception number 1 zone to the environmental protection zone. More specifically, consent application B18-2023 is to sever the property to create a new residential lot for a single detached dwelling. The proposed sever lands being lot 1 on the key map and the subject and on the consent sketch will have a lot area of approximately 1 acre with a frontage of approximately 200 feet on Percy Boom Road. And more specifically regarding consent application B05-2024, the purpose is to sever the property to create a new residential lot for single detached dwelling as well. And the proposed severed lands being lot 2 on the associated sketches will have a lot area of approximately 1 acre and a frontage of just under 200 feet on Percy Boom Road. That is the description of the applications.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject applications? And anyone coming in on Zoom? I don't see anyone up there. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? None noted. Mr. Walsh, do you have any final comments?
Mayor and Council, only that the applications are subject to typical consent conditions and nothing out of the ordinary.
Is council prepared to make a decision this evening? I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the staff report dated April 8th, 2024 regarding subject applications for 0 Percy Boom Road consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications B18-2023, B05-2024, and Z09-2023. And further, that council enacts a bylaw to rezone the severed lots of B18-2023 and B05-2024 from the agricultural exception number 1 zone to the rural residential zone. And further, that council grant provisional consent to applications B18-2023 and B05-2024 subject to the following conditions. Each condition shall be fulfilled no later than 2 years from the date of the mailing of the decision. That application for zoning bylaw amendment Z09-2023 is finally approved. At the applicant's cost, sufficient land be conveyed by registered transfer to the municipality of Brighton along the frontage for widening of the road allowance to a minimum of 10 meters from the center line along Percy Boom Road, inclusive of any associated travel areas, shoulders, or drainage works. The conveyances referenced in condition number 3C above shall be clear of any liens or encumbrances, all to the satisfaction of the manager of operations. That cash in lieu of parkland be paid to the municipality, an amount equal to 5% of the appraised value of the subject land, to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. That the OLS indicate in writing to the Director of Planning and Development that no encroachments of wells or septic systems will result from the new lots being created. That applications for entrance permits for the severed lots are submitted and approved by the municipality. That the applicant enter into a consent development agreement with the municipality to implement the conclusions and recommendations from the hydrologic evaluation report as accepted by the municipality of Brighton. That GIS shapefiles of all field verified wetlands are provided to the Lower Trent Conservation and the municipality of Brighton to ensure regulatory mapping can be appropriately updated. All taxes on each of the lots be paid up to date prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. A digital copy of a registrable survey for the lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk. The surveyor deposit with the municipality a geospatial data file of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained lands submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. And the owner provides to the municipality a registrable description on a deed conveying the severed lands for use for the issuance of a certificate of official for consent. Before I ask for discussion, I will note and get consent from the mover and the seconder that I have made a small typographic change to line E. Currently reads the Directory of Planning, and I've changed it to Director. Is that okay with you, Councillor Wheeldon and Councillor Wright? Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next item in our statutory public meeting is consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications B03 2024, B04 2024, and Z02 2024. The applicants are James Hume and Lynne Curran-Hume. The location is 918 County Road 26. And Mr. Walsh, by what method and on what date was notice of the application given?
Mayor and Council, notice of the subject applications were given on March 18th, 2024, through a posting of a sign on the subject lands, a display on the municipal webpage for Planning Act applications, and lastly through regular mail to all assessed property owners within 120 meters of subject lands, all in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And would you please explain the purpose and reason for the subject bylaws before council this evening?
Mayor and Council, the purpose of consent application B3-2024 is to adjust the lot lines of the existing lots. The purpose of consent application B04-2024 is to facilitate the consent cancellation. More specifically, consent application B3-2024 is to sever a 1.87 hectare or 4.62 acre portion of the property located along County Road 26 and add it to the rural residential property located at 918 County Road 26. The application will result in the retained lands having a total lot area of approximately just under 2 acres with 102.7 meters or 396.94 feet of frontage on 918 County Road 26. And more specifically regarding consent application B4-2024, its purpose is to facilitate consent cancellation under section 5345 of the Planning Act, which is something of a new section of the Planning Act where it helps expedite lot additions or lot line adjustments. The lot to be expanded was previously severed, and the consent stamp on it makes it gives it the status of once a lot, always a lot under section 53 of the Planning Act, and typically can't undo that consent except through municipal consent of a variety of natures. And now, however, we have this new tool, consent cancellation. And so consent cancellation was required to allow and facilitate this lot addition. And it's considered a technical consent for purposes of fees and charges. And more specifically regarding zoning bylaw amendment number Z02-2024, its purpose is to rezone the portions of the severed property to be added to 918 County Road 26 to the future development zone and to capture portions of the property located in the waste disposal area. So in other words, we're trying to create an area that won't be subject to development opportunities because of its influence within an abandoned waste site to the north. And so we don't want anybody to drill their well and perhaps have some adverse offsite influences coming from it. And it helps avoid needing to do a study while still accommodating development. It's also to rezone the identified environmental features of the remaining part of the property and put it into a more accurate environmental protection zone. The current zoning of the benefiting and retained parcels is to remain the same. That completes the description.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Are there persons present who have questions or comments regarding the subject applications? And I don't see anyone online for that purpose. Are there any questions or comments regarding the subject application of members of council? Mr. Walsh, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further, but I may have slightly misspoke my first time around. There is a slightly new thing with these two applications, and that is the payment in lieu of parkland being subject to qualified appraisal. So we have a new parkland payment in lieu of parkland bylaw, and it requires an appraisal for the lands to be assessed, and then it will be 5% of that value, as opposed to the standard $500 that council may have historically noticed.
And that is a condition that will be read if council wishes to proceed with this.
That's correct.
Thank you. Does council wish to proceed? I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council receive the staff report dated April 8th, 2024 regarding the subject applications for 918 County Road 26, being consent applications B03-2024 and B04-2024, and zoning bylaw amendment application Z02-2024. And further, that council enacts a bylaw to rezone the severed lots of B03-2024 and B04-2024 from the agricultural exception number 1 zone to rural residential zone. And further, that council grant provisional consent to applications B03-2024 and B04-2024 subject to the following conditions. Each condition shall be fulfilled no later than 2 years from the date of the mailing of the decision. That application for zoning bylaw amendment Z02-2024 is finally approved. At the applicant's cost, sufficient land be conveyed by registered transfer to the County of Northumberland along the frontage for the widening of the road allowance to a minimum of 17 meters from the center line along County Road 26, inclusive of any associated traveled areas, shoulders, or drainage works. The conveyances referenced in condition number 3C above shall be clear of any liens or encumbrances, all to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works for Northumberland County. That cash in lieu of parkland be paid to the municipality, an amount equal to 5% of the appraised value of the subject lands to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Development. That the OLS indicate in writing to the Director of Planning and Development that no encroachments of wells or septic systems will result from the new lots being created. That applications for entrance permits for the severed lots are submitted and approved by the municipality. That GIS shapefile of all field verified wetlands are provided to Lower Trent Conservation and the Municipality of Brighton to ensure regulatory mapping can be appropriately updated. That all taxes on each of the lots be paid up to date prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. A digital copy of a registrable survey for the lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk. The surveyor deposit with the municipality a geospatial data file of the surveyed parcel fabric with respect to the severed and retained land submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality. And the owner provides to the municipality a registrable description on a deed conveying the severed lands for use for the issuance of a certificate of official for consent. Councillor Rowley, as the mover, I note the same spelling error, and that has been corrected on the motion. Councillor Wheeldon, as a seconder, you're okay with that? Members of council, any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And we'll return to the regular portion of the agenda and come out of the statutory public meeting with a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. That council move out of the statutory public meeting April 8th, 2024 at 6:48 p.m. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to planning and development reports. The first report is an oral report. Says from the manager of approvals, but I assume Director Walsh, you will be providing us with that report.
That's correct, Mayor. So the Committee of Adjustment met and dealt with a minor variance for the property along Main Street, and it involved a proposal to put an apartment in the building. It's zoned commercial, and the commercial zoning permits an apartment on the second story only. The intentions of that provision, the rational basis in terms of good planning for that provision, is to ensure that storefronts remain storefronts and they don't get closed in by private or semi-private uses, that Main Street remains inviting to the public. People along the street are invited in, and to fail to have a form of development that does that threatens to lose the function of Main Street. And however, it's good to have a mix of uses in Main Street. So residential uses are also permitted, and in this case above the first story, but typically in terms of comprehensive zoning bylaws I've written in the past for different municipalities, I would also allow it in the back half of the building. And so this application landed before the Committee of Adjustment to permit that additional residential use. And the question became, does the committee have the powers to do that? Because it looks like it's changing around permitted uses. It's not dealing with the appropriateness of an interior side yard or height of a building or other yard dimension. And And I just want to, one, indicate that the committee decision to refer to council is understandable in some context. However, it stays within the purview of that committee to make a decision one way or the other. And I'll just point out maybe some of the powers under Section 48 of the Planning Act that's available to the committee. So it's all under Section 45. If you're an eager beaver and want to look up some of these things. But in one section, subsection 1 lays out the typical 4 powers: conformity to the official plan, intent of the official plan, intent of the zoning bylaw, whether it's appropriate development, and whether it's minor in nature. And the test for minor is not usually a number analysis so much as are there adverse impacts flowing from the site to a neighboring property. And so those are the 4 tests that typically get cited in any staff report or decision. In fact, in most form decisions with the signatures of the committee members, just outline the 4 tests and nothing much more. However, there's also subsection 2. So that's subsection 1, subsection 2 refers to a couple of items there. It allows the committee to have the power that to expand or enlarge a non-conforming building. So if you're using a building for something that's a no-no in the zoning bylaw, the committee can receive an application and permit the expansion, subject to some of those same tests. Some new things in that section are relatively new, is the ability for municipalities to lay down additional tests or criterion in which the committee can have regard before making a decision. Our official plan doesn't have that. Something worthwhile considering in an update. The second power under subsection 2, excuse me, is to interpret the zoning bylaw, whether if it's a general provision and whether the specific circumstance meets that general provision. So you're taking a generality and putting it into a specific context. And the committee has the ability to do that, provided it's compatible and meets the moving towards conformity and a couple other criterion. And another element in that is that was section A. Section B, I won't get into that part, but the last power that is of interest is any bylaw that was implementing an official plan policy is open to committee variance. So a couple that come to mind, if you go through the Municipal Act, you'll see a number of bylaws that are only empowered if there's an official plan policy in place. But one that comes to mind is a bylaw that gets passed under the building code, which is the property standards bylaw. So theoretically, you could have something land before the committee of adjustment for interpretation of the property standards bylaw ahead of going to the property standards committee. That takes some coordination. So there's a wide range of powers. So in this case, when it goes back to committee, I'm thinking subsection 2 items, Roman numeral 1 or Roman numeral 2 may be appropriate powers for the committee to consider utilizing.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. And having created a committee of adjustment and therefore delegating our authority to that committee, we're not able now to deal with items that should be before that committee. Is that how I understand how a committee of adjustment works?
That's correct. Once you've given that to committee, then they run with it. You know, we would have to be really looking at amendment to our procedural bylaw and really digging down a few through administrative layers before we could undo that. But right now, the committee is disposed to do that, and my recommendation is to continue to be seized with this application to finalize it. And if they need to do a zone amendment, then that could come before the council. But I think based on those sections on the Planning Act, I think there's opportunity for the Committee of Adjustment to finally dispose of it.
Thank you. I'll read the motion, then ask for further discussion from council. I have a motion moved by Council Wright, second by Council Wheeldon, that Council refer this matter back to the Committee of Adjustment, inclusive of any supplemental staff information or report. Questions or comments from members of Council? Councilor Fredis.
Through the chair, thank you. I sit on the COA and was part of the group that were feeling a little uncomfortable about the scope of our authority, and hence the referral to council. In subsequent conversations with Director Walsh, I guess what we overlooked was the opportunity to simply defer the matter to seek further supplemental information and further investigation of our legislative authority. So I support sending this back to the COA now that we have some further enlightenment as to the scope of our authority on the matter, so that we can then consider it once again.
Thank you. Anything further from members of Council? All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Our next report is Sewage Inspection Enforcement Services Agreement with the County of Northumberland. The report was prepared by Mr. Parkinson. Director Walsh, do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Mayor, as this is never simply for the county. They approached us, try and get these agreements with other member municipalities in Northumberland County in sync in terms of scheduling or renewal of these agreements when they are eligible for renewal.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councilor Fredis, seconded by Councilor Butwell, that Council receive the staff report regarding sewage system inspection and enforcement services agreement with the County of Northumberland, and that the appropriate bylaw be brought forward for Council's consideration to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement between the Municipality of Brighton and Northumberland County to provide sewage inspection and enforcement services. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. We have no items for information purposes and nothing listed under unfinished business, which brings us to bylaws. And the first is the sewage system agreement. It's moved by Councilor Butwell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and the Corporation of the County of Northumberland for inspection and enforcement services pursuant to the sewage system provisions for the Municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery who has a question of anything on tonight's agenda? Mr. Green, could you step forward to the microphone? Question period is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions about items that appeared on this evening's agenda. Members are asked to state their name for the record before asking their question. A maximum of 5 minutes is set aside for question period. Language, content, and conduct must remain respectful at all times. Questions will be received and answered by the mayor or by a member of council or staff if designated by the mayor. Mr. Green.
Thank you, David Green. It's really a question about what's not on the agenda. The question period? I'm sorry, the citizens' comment?
We don't do citizens' comment in the council planning meetings because we have the statutory public meeting.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the gallery? And I don't see anyone online for that purpose. So that takes us to our closed session meeting. I'll remind everyone joining us on YouTube that once we go into the closed session, we will end the YouTube live stream and we will not return to the YouTube live stream when we come back into open session. And once I've read the motion to go into closed session, assuming council agrees that we will go into closed session, we will take a 10-minute recess before we proceed into the closed session or with the closed session matters. I have a motion moved by Councilor Fredis, seconded by Councilor Butwell, that council resolve itself into closed session April 8th, 2024 at 6:59 p.m. Pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act RSO 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, sale or purchase of land opportunity. And E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, Superior Court case, short-term accommodation penalty. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And we are recessed to 7:10 p.m.